good teaching practice when I went in and observed classes and what was happening in those staff rooms. What I've basically done is had a look at the 11 staff rooms and tried to work out what works in one staff room, what doesn't work in another, and trying to work out the vibe, what's a good vibe in a staff room. I've tried to take that vibe and unpack it, and today I'm going to try and share with you a few things that maybe you can put in your staff rooms that hopefully might make the vibe better. Now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to think about the current state of your staff rooms at the moment. We're going to think about how to equip the staff room, then a bit more difficult, how to reinforce the school culture, and then dealing with teachers. People are often stressed and emotional in the staff room. How do we deal with that? And then finally, I'm going to give you a checklist you can take away, and maybe you can try this out in your own staff room. So, the first part, is this your staff room? Quite familiar? No? Or maybe this is your staff room. We're going to find out, just for a minute, we're going to do just a little bit of work just for 2 minutes in total. First of all, I'd like to just say hello to your new best friend who's next to you or near you. Okay.
All right. I'm Rob. Just what they come up.
Hello, join you guys. I'm Ellie.
I'm Rob. Ellie.
With your partner,
The stuff room. It's quite big. You've got that.
No, you haven't seen them for a while in there. Here's what you're going to do. Person number one, you're going to talk for just 1 minute about your staff room, just describe your staff room. And person number two, you're going to listen for that minute, and then when they're finished, you're going to say how your staff room differs from that. Okay? So decide who's one, who's two. Okay? 2 minutes, starting now.
45 seconds.
So, space for 50 teachers, quite a lot of computers, it's a lot of workspace, and it's quite a kind of nice environment, a lot of notice boards as well. There's a food preparation area, that's also nice. So yeah, how does yours differ?
We used to have a food preparation place, that's moved where I'm working now. We've got quite a big staff room, but too many people in it. It's quite cramped because our furniture is not furniture for teachers, it's furniture that would be used for a call centre. It's very cramped.
Inherited furniture, we have that too.
I think inherited is chosen especially because our stupid design and especially like notice boards, there's very little real space. A lot of glass down one side, very little boards, and what is on them is
But there's natural light, no natural light.
oh, we've got some natural light.
That's good.
I teach inside the radio, so it's air conditioned, and it's quite big and only few of us here because we teach training, so we have special room there. We don't spend much time in it, we're always moving around with the kids every day, but we love time spending in the day. And we enjoy it. It has furniture, much furniture from the copier, internet access, so many.
So do you have materials and stuff?
No, the material we have are easy.
So do you prepare it? Or is it just a relaxation space?
No, it's just a workstation. Most of the time we're outside for the chair.
So it's kind of like a meeting room.
We've got air conditioning in the team, which is centralised, and it doesn't work. It's never at the right temperature for people.
It's been Baltic. Very, very hot. Lots of complaints.
Having a listen to you, yeah, some of the things you share in common, some things are slightly different. Duncan Fjord, who's in this room earlier, talking about delegating. He and Lindsay Clanfield did a session on humanising the staff room, and they suggested that what the functions of the staff room are. They're very straightforward, and all your staff rooms should really do this. Work like an office, somewhere to eat, drink, and talk, place to escape to, find resources, of course, keep your folders, papers, and to find out information about the running of the school and what's happening, etc. Some of you, when you're talking, it seems like obviously some of them are better equipped than others. Things like a workplace like an office, most of you seem to come up with that one. A place to find resources, obviously, but perhaps something like a place to eat and drink, maybe not so for some. Now, we're going to look at how you can maybe make, first of all, the physical aspects of your staff room a little bit better. So we're going to look at equipment. And that starts off with another cartoon. Knight goes into a restaurant, and what does he ask for? A table. What kind of table? A round table. Yes. This is round table. Okay. It doesn't have to be round, but certainly a central table is a good idea in the staff room. Central table, there's more chance of people looking at each other in the eye. When people are looking at each other in the eye, there's maybe more chance they might talk to one another and share a few ideas. I think it's perfectly okay to have tables and chairs down the back as well, perhaps, if you're marking or you need some quiet time. But I think there should be a table where people come together, look at each other and share. The other thing as well, storage space, of course, should be very like this. Okay, so a place for everything, everything is placed. Again, very straightforward, and teachers should be equipped with a space for their own things. So if you're lucky, you have a locker for things. If not, just give your teachers a plastic box. One is enough, because if you give them more than one, they'll fill up more and more. So if you give one, it encourages you to tidy up after yourself. So that's simple stuff. The other thing that's really important is just to say the teachers. So you want to make sure that they've got coffee, tea, biscuits, a variety of biscuits as well, and water. Okay, dead obvious, but I noticed in across the 11 staff rooms we had, for example, one staff room didn't have tea and coffee facilities because within the school on another floor there was a cafe. But the time it took to get down there and back between a lesson, we couldn't always do it, so they went without. You don't want to go without. You need your coffee to get you through the next class. And obviously you want to make sure there's enough stationery. Very simple thing to make sure you've got all of these as well is have a notice board and a notebook and someone responsible to write down when things are running out as well. I know in staff rooms in the past people complain there's no staples. All it needs is when you start to see them running out, write them in your notebook and you get them before anything runs out. Also now, staff rooms aren't just physical, they're online, and I think it's important for the school you're at to maybe invest in some kind of website. Obviously, if you've got computers in your staff room, which many of you have, just hands up if you've got computers in your staff room. I imagine that's pretty much universal. Obviously, if you've got Google, you've got access to the world, but you want to try and help your teachers focus a little bit. So, for example, OISE, we've got lesson plan packs that we have on our website. We've photocopiable materials because they're photocopyable. You can obviously photocopy them, scan them, put them on a computer. Doesn't break copyright, and also means if somebody walks away with a book, it doesn't matter because you've always got access to them. Also, we put essays on teaching. We deal with young learners, 14-17. So there's essays on there, for example, how to motivate teenagers. There's things on error correction, and also web links to typical EFL websites. So, for example, after this conference, if you were to go back, and add the IATEFO site so that other teachers can view all the sessions. Obviously they could do that themselves, but if you tell them it's there, point it out to them, it might encourage them to do it more. So that's the first step, the easy step, that's the equipment. A bit harder is the culture of the staff room. Now we all are here as conference from different schools, and you meet people, and when you say I'm Duncan Jamieson from OISE, or whatever, I'm from this council, I'm from IH or Bell, you want to be proud of your school and the principles it has. Just with your same best friend, can you just tell your partner in 1 minute what makes your school unique? Why is your school different than any other school? 1 minute, go.
I think it does need more research out. It does really aim for I'm the director, and it aims for general, not particularly specific, but it's probably a separate how quality is maintained. Is it part of? Yeah, but it's our principal Toby Evans. Organisation that does English language
Every school is different, there's always something that it's got. And we're going to think about how we can get everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. Okay? So we're going to look at ways of maybe fostering the culture in the staff room. One way we're trying it OISE this year, and these posters on the wall you probably can't see from a distance, but it doesn't particularly matter. The idea is that we have them. In a staff room you'd obviously be able to see them. And we want to try and encourage the principles that we have in our schools. As I mentioned, we have young learner summer school courses, which means we often have teachers who are quite inexperienced, so sometimes we like to remind them of things. So there's here error correction techniques they can try. At the top, obviously you won't be able to see it, so I'll tell you what it says. It says, do you use these error correction techniques? How many do you use in your teaching? Try them out in class. So it just encourages teachers to use them. Something we talked about at OISE last year was being courageous and encouraging teachers to take risks. And these are ideas for taking risks. So do you believe that your learners can achieve great things? What's another one? Do you ask challenging questions? Do you provide clear, concise feedback? And that could be used as a mini session on the wall, and the senior teacher could put you in pairs or groups and just say with your partner, can you think of a real life example that you've done in class of this? And so if you do a training session after you've done it and you've done posters that disappear, why not get them on the staff room wall and just recycle them a bit, help them do them again. They're there, they're seen. You know, people see them now day in, day out. Things might start to sink in. How you use posters, it's up to you. But it is another option that I don't think gets done very often. So that's posters. The other thing is the notice board. Is it just a blank space? What's it like? Well, we've got a few suggestions of the kind of things you should maybe put up on your notice board. Obviously, a weekly diary of things that you're doing. A heads up. So, for example, it says cubicle in gents is flooded. So things that arise. Timetables, of course, of all the teachers, so that you all know where any teacher is at any time, should you need them. Rotas, for example. And this side of the board, the notice board, is more for the teachers, as it's more interactive. So this is maybe more the management telling you things. Here, lesson ideas. You've got a good lesson, pin it up on the board. Staff photos, either you can have passport photos or encourage the teachers to personalise them and bring snapshots that they like of themselves, pop on the board. And a fun section, cartoons, etc. A previous school I worked in, we had a looky-likey board where you put up who all the teachers look like, which famous celebrity they look like. Okay. I was Stan Laurel, which I thought was a little bit unfair. And then other things like that. It's my birthday, join me for a drink, etc. Okay? So the nice thing is this is the teachers, and they have ownership of it. You can give them this area, whether they use it, it's up to them. If they enjoy it, it will get used. If they don't, it will probably wither and die unless you kind of maybe the first thing to do for the lesson ideas is do a couple yourself, get them on the board, and then hopefully people get into doing that. The other thing that's good in the staff room is the buddy system. Oh, there I go. Yeah, buddy system. So pairing people up. For us, it's easier. We have new teachers, so when they come to the centre, it's easy for us to do that because nobody knows each other. When you've already got a school that's been going a long time, it's maybe harder to encourage that buddy system overnight. But it's a good idea. And who you pair can be either like or people who are quite radically different is often good because then you see things from a different perspective and try things you might not ordinarily try. The other thing is course and level groups, so encourage people who are teaching the same level, set a time, set a day and say, okay, that level team you meet, and beginning you encourage it, but perhaps after a week or two it will run itself and teachers will do it automatically. Again, if they've got a big central table where they can do it, the other thing we have to think about is, teaching can be stressful, and we want to avoid teachers going from this to this. There's a lot of personalities in the staff room, often big personalities. Teachers often have big personalities, and we've got to try and think about how we can deal with that. Now, Daniel Goleman, who wrote Emotional Intelligence, and talked about emotional passion, and about people's understanding of self-motivation, self-regulation, and empathy with others. But you can also transfer it to an institution as well. And there would be 6 qualities a good institution would have. And emotional intelligence and emotional quotient means your sense of kind of well-being, you feel safe, valued in your workplace. So have a look at what they are and think about, is this true of your workplace and do you feel this way? So the first one is attachment, so a sense of belonging. Second one is that other people experience difficulties as well, so reassurance. Then there's the idea of bonding, that you facilitate friendships. So those 3, perhaps the buddy system, the level groups, they can help do that. The fun sections and the board, the lesson ideas, the sharing of ideas can all help with those 3. Then there's induction. So there's no point having all these wonderful materials on the website if you don't tell the teachers they're there. So continue to do induction, not just when new teachers arrive, but whenever something new happens, have a meeting or a little session where you show them what these materials can do. Teacher training as well, very important, and of course, we're all at a conference like this, which is great. Where development is fantastic. The opportunities here to learn new things is great. And also the final one is holism, where the idea of the work-life balance. And again, an event like this is terrific because you maybe get to hang out with colleagues that you normally don't, and you see beyond them as a teacher or colleague, and maybe deepen your friendship, which kind of goes back to the bonding one. Now, There's two in red, induction and training, and the reason I put them in red is that I think these two are probably influenced very much by the senior teacher. Now, you may have a different name for this person, or the person may fulfill a slightly different role than happens in our context. Where I work, I'm the overall academic manager for the 11 centres, but we have a senior teacher in each centre who doesn't teach, or sometimes teaches, but the main role is to support the other teachers there. And I asked the teachers in our schools to name which qualities a senior teacher should have, and these were the qualities they told me. So approachable, helpful, knowledgeable, sensitive, good interpersonal skills, calm came up, organised, good coach, a role model, and positive and optimistic, which I think is a good one. You know, it's no point if your manager's not positive or optimistic, I think you're lost. And I think if your senior teacher does all of these things, there's a good chance they're going to be respected. Just out of interest, we then, at the end of the courses, ask teachers feedback about senior teachers and things. And which of these qualities do you think came up most in feedback, either positively or negative? Which one? No.
Organised.
Organised came up. Organised or disorganised. That seemed to irk the teachers most. Knowledgeable didn't really come up that much. Next to organised, it was closely followed by approachability. If the senior teacher was standoffish, that was again feedback and feedback, didn't like that. So it seems like if you're organised and approachable, you're halfway there. If the senior teacher isn't this, then we have to think of helping them and training them to be better in that way. So for example, if their interpersonal skills aren't that great, you might want to do a little activity, which I'll give you at the end of the session to take away, where, for example, they identify 6 different types in a workplace. They can identify which one they are first. And then maybe they can think about the teachers in the staff room, which personality type they are. And then there's also advice on how to deal with that person, how to approach that person. And this kind of thing might help people who are not so good at those kind of things. Another thing we have to think about in the staff room, which is sometimes happens, is whining. Sometimes, the reality is sometimes people do whine. And that can be a difficult thing to deal with. Here's a suggestion that I think works quite well. This is Brinkman and Kushner, who are psychologists who wrote the book How to Work with People You Can't Stand. And read it for you, just in case you can't read it back. If you must deal with whining, your role is to team up with them to form a problem-solving alliance. The difference between a problem solver and a whiner is in the way each approaches a problem. Problem solver looks at the problem with an eye towards finding solutions. The whiner looks at the problem, feels helpless, and then generalises that the problem is worse than it actually is. The best you can do with someone who's constantly complaining for everyone around them is to work with him to diminish his feelings of helplessness by helping him to identify solutions. Done consistently through time, this strategy can sometimes cure the whiner once and for all. The feeling of helplessness diminishes, so does the need to whine. So it's a case of good coaching. So if someone comes to you and they're whining because they have a problem, you want to think about, well, what's your ideal solution here? And ask them what would be their ideal solution. And then say, okay, what's stopping you, what's blocking you? And you can break that down to what's blocking them in themselves, what's blocking them in terms of their colleagues, or the students, or the institution. And then say, okay, how can you get around that particular obstacle? And maybe through those kind of things, maybe you can achieve a staff room where people whine a little bit less. The last thing I'm going to talk about is teacher talking time. In the staff room, it's allowed. Okay? Yeah, that's only in an EFL context would that joke ever work. So what can you talk about? What should and what shouldn't you talk about in the staff room? I think there's one small principle I think you can stick to which works fairly well. And that would be, for example, these two ladies know each other very well, teachers for a number of years. What can they talk about? I would say they can talk about anything in the world. If they want to talk about teaching, great. If they want to talk about the divorce or their kids or what have you, that's fine too. You can talk about anything. The only one thing to think about in the staff room is that your audience is talk about your divorce or anything, non-PC or what have you, but not when other people can hear you. And just be sensitive to that. And I think that often can be something that can wind other people up as well. Now, another thing you can do, the final thing you can do, is have a suggestion box. Anonymous, and that way what can happen is if teachers think something can be improved in the staff room or in the senior teacher or the school itself, they can just pop it in anonymously. At the end of the week you can read them and try to take action in these things. Some things may not be things that are actionable, but other things perhaps were on your blind side you didn't notice, and very often they're good ideas and you can work on them. Now, I've given you a staff room checklist which is underneath your seat. Okay, now if you just look at me for a moment, I know good teaching, you shouldn't give out the handout and let them say it before you give them instructions, but there you go, broken the golden rule. But basically, it's a little action plan. All the things I've kind of mentioned are here, and just tick them if you've got them in your staff room. If you don't, you're going to think about what action should be taken. So for example, very simply, some are easy. So for example, biscuits, no biscuits, action taken, buy biscuits. Okay? Some may be more complicated. So if your senior teacher is not approachable, how are you going to deal with that? If you feel that the teachers as well, the training, they're not getting enough training, how are you going to approach that? How are you going to give them more training? So some of the action plans may be more complicated, but it might act as a guide to help you. Incidentally, on the other side is the 6 different character types that you can read at home and decide which one you are and then which one your colleagues are. Now, I'm going to finish with a quick visualization exercise. I want you to sit back and relax in your chair, loosen your shoulders. Okay, close your eyes. Some of you are already there. And I just want you to imagine your staff room. But this time I want you to imagine some changes in your staff room. And first of all, I want you to think about what you can see around the walls of your staff room. I want you to think about what you see as furniture in your staff room. I want you to think about the people who are in your staff room. What are they doing? I want you to think about what you hear in your staff room. What kind of conversations do you hear in your staff room? And finally, I want you to think about how you feel in this staff room. Okay? You can wake up. Okay? This is my little quote I made up. I think I should go into marketing after this. So it's, we all have room to improve, but we all have our room to improve. Okay? Just hopefully, if you do that, we'll avoid this. And it will be more like this.
We hope you enjoyed watching this video. You can watch more videos on www.emw-edu.com. Don't forget like and share. Bye.